So now I guess it's my turn?
Yeah.
My turn to talk about my parents?
Yep.
I swear that dog wants to ruin every single clip that we do. So now I guess it's my turn to talk about my parents.
It is.
Oh my God! Lucky's going inside. This video, I'm gonna talk about my parents. Where are you going? What are you doing? Go inside.
No.
Hi, I'm Jen, and this is my wife, Rachel. Together we live in North Carolina with our kids, Bennett and Riding, and our dogs, Coco and Lucky. Join us as we share our life and our adventures. Please subscribe and enjoy the video. So now it's my turn to talk about my parents and what lovely folkin they are.
Mm-hmm.
They are.
They are really lovely.
You better say that.
I love your
You want to know what my
parents.
dad says about Rachel? So I have two sisters, right? And they're both married to men. And so he says that Rachel is his favorite daughter-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
Probably because I'm his favorite daughter. So my parents don't have a cute story of how they met like Rachel's parents did. Cute stories of asking each other out at roller skating rinks. My parents met in a bar. Funnily enough, both of my sisters met their spouses in bars too, so I guess it runs in the family. I met mine at the gym. I gotta be honest, I don't even know how long my parents dated before they got married. I don't even know this, but I think my mom was pregnant with Naomi, my older sister, before they got married. And then my parents were married for I think 12 years. Okay, that makes sense then. They were married for 12 years. Because when I was 9, that would mean my older sister was 12. My parents got divorced. So yeah, I think my mom was pregnant before they got married. Yeah, so my parents got divorced when I was 9 years old. And that's the story of their marriage. So I guess I'll talk next about each of them individually. So kind of similar to Rachel's parents, my parents grew up like opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of birth order. My dad, he has 5 siblings, but he has a younger brother, but his younger brother is like 8 years younger than him. So he grew up the baby of the family. And then my mom, there's 6 of them total. One has passed away, but 6 of them total, and she was the oldest. So my mom was the oldest of 6. And my dad was basically the youngest of 4 until many years later when he had a baby brother. So my dad grew up in St. Paul with his mom and his dad. His dad worked at the Ford plant. But they would always, both of his parents were from Webster, Wisconsin, which is a super tiny, small town in Wisconsin. And so he would go up there a lot with his dad, and they would spend time on the lake and fish and hunt. And that's where his love of the outdoors really came from. And my dad actually now lives in Webster, Wisconsin. My sisters both have cabins in the area as well. It's a really important and special place to us. That's something that I'm really grateful for from my grandpa, is that he instilled in my dad a love of the outdoors, and that my dad passed that on to us. I never actually met my dad's dad. He passed away shortly before I was born, actually, so I've never even met him, but my dad speaks very highly of him and said that I would love him and that he would have loved me and that we would have had a really good time together. And then my mom, she grew up just outside of the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And my grandma actually still lives in the same 2-bedroom household that my mother, 6 kids, grew up in. Her upbringing was a little bit different. I've mentioned it before, but when my mom was 12, her dad abandoned the family. And so my grandma was left raising 6 kids, all on her own in the 60s and 70s. So my mom grew up pretty poor. They were on food stamps. Lots of canned food. My mom said they barely ever had fresh fruits or vegetables. They would get bags of apples from time to time, but that was really it. 2 very different upbringings. I guess both of my parents, I'll just describe them and their personalities, what they're like. My dad's 6'2", tall guy. That is where I get my height from. 6'2", handsome. He's very charming. He's charismatic. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
He likes to tell stories. I wouldn't call him chatty, but he does like to talk, and I feel like the older he gets, the more he likes to share stories, and I really like hearing the stories. So he can also be quite impatient, and he can be pessimistic as well, but his charming character balances that out. He's a truck driver. He still is a truck driver. He drives truck for Cisco, and I think one time he told me that he is at least in their branch, I don't know if it's for every Cisco, but the longest employee of any position in that company, period, which is insane. The dude needs to retire. So growing up, since my parents did divorce when I was 9, how the custody worked was my mom had full custody of us, and we would see my dad every other weekend. So as a kid, I didn't get to spend a ton of time with my dad, and that is something that, as an adult, kind of makes me sad. And it's not that he didn't want to. It's just how things were. You know, it wasn't like he didn't want to be there all the time. And him and my mom even talked before they got divorced, and I've talked to him about this since, that his biggest fear and biggest sadness when they got divorced was not being able to be there for the everyday stuff, that he just knew that he was going to be missing out on a huge part of me and my sisters growing up. So that's kind of sad. It's funny, my video has like a sadder undertone than yours did. We'll cheer it up, I promise. Yeah. Really though, like I had a great childhood, and like when we would go to my dad's house, you know, he would play catch with the football, and we would go down to, there was a school down the block, and we would go shoot hoops. I played basketball. He coached some of my early basketball stuff, and you know, he would always came to my games, and he was always present for that stuff, for the important things. So, and in the summers we would be with him a lot, and he would take us to Webster. We would go camping, hang on the lake, canoe trips, like lots of outdoor stuff, a lot of nature, outdoorsy types of things. That was what we did with my dad. Yeah, so a lot of my favorite memories with my dad revolve around being outdoors. My dad took me and my sisters on this canoe trip. It was like a 3-day canoe trip down the St. Croix River. Well, it's the last night, and it's supposed to rain that night. Me and my dad are sharing a tent. Naomi and Chelsea are sharing a tent. Me and my dad, we set up our tent at the top of this hill. Naomi and Chelsea decide they're going to pitch theirs at the bottom of this hill. And again, it's supposed to rain, and where does water run? It runs downhill. And my dad knew it, but he said that he thought it would be a good lesson for them to learn. That's such a dad thing. Yeah. Like, I thought it would be a really good lesson for them to learn to get really wet one night. Yeah. So he let them set up their tent there. Well, in the middle of the night, sure enough, Naomi and Chelsea are soaked. And so they have to come into our tent. And the 4 of us now are sleeping in one tent. Okay, story gets better. So we get on the river, going down river that day. God, I can't remember if it was me and my dad in a canoe or me and Chelsea. I don't know who was in the canoe with me. All I know is that the other canoe that I was not in, and that I did not make this happen, tipped. And all our stuff fell out of the canoe, starts floating down the river, or sinks to the bottom depending on what the item is. And so we all, including the canoe, mind you, so we all 4 of us now have to hop into one canoe that also has a bunch of gear in it, and we're paddling our asses off to go and get this canoe. We get it, empty the water out, and we're just trying to collect as many items as we can find in the river. And I had a Chicago Bulls beach towel, and man, that was like, you know, you just have certain items as a kid that you just love, and they're so special to you and so cool. Well, my towel sunk in the bottom of the river, and I was so sad. And Chelsea also had a Little Mermaid towel that was her pride and joy, and her Little Mermaid towel sunk to the bottom of the river. This river, we cross it every time that we go to Webster to the cabin, and ever since then, every time we cross the river, my dad will say, "And that's the river that damn near killed us." One year, he rented a houseboat, and we went up north, Lake Vermilion it's called. Huge lake, northern Minnesota. Yeah, and we did this houseboat for an entire week. It was awesome. The houseboat had a slide on it, and so you could go up to the roof of this thing and go down the slide into the water. Another trip that unfortunately wasn't appreciated due to the age of his daughters. He took us on a 2-week road trip from Minnesota to the West Coast. And we went to Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. I think I was about 14. So Chelsea was 13, I was 14, that means Naomi was 17. And Naomi at the time had a boyfriend. And she did not want to leave her boyfriend for 2 weeks. It was the end of the world to be away from her boyfriend for 2 weeks. And I remember my dad coming and picking us up from my mom's, and Naomi's bawling in the driveway, like just sobbing because she doesn't want to go. And my dad being all upset and like, you know, being the dad, wasn't very sympathetic or empathetic to how a 17-year-old girl might feel. We did the road trip, and I had a Game Boy at the time and you know, a CD player as well, and so I would listen to music a lot or play games. And I remember my dad would get irritated with us. Guys, just missing all the scenery. You're just reading your books and playing your video games, and you're missing all the beauty. And you know, he had a good point, but also it's sometimes hard to get teenagers to appreciate those special things. All right, let's talk about my mom. My mom, on the other hand, is like 5'4", so short. I was taller than her, I think, when I was in 5th grade. 5'4", and just like, she's also very personable, chatty, overly optimistic, rose-colored glasses, see the bright side, positivity to the utmost degree. But growing up, my mom was always like, you can be whatever you want to be, and you can do whatever you want to do. And I always would talk about the universe provides, and if you ask, believe, receive is something that she used to say a lot. I think a big reason I'm a chiropractor is because of my mom. She was always into alternative health things. Like, we were pretty healthy, well, to a degree, with food growing up. My mom was anti-sugar, anti-white bread stuff. She was mindful in that way, but then on the other hand, we also ate a lot of frozen pizzas. She's not a good cook. And, you know, she was a mom who was working and had 3 kids, so, I mean, we didn't always eat the best, but she also did prioritize food quality. I don't know, kind of a contradiction, I know, but somehow she did it. But she was also into aromatherapy. She was into massage therapy, acupuncture. She did go to the chiropractor, but she used it symptomatically. She even brought me to the chiropractor a few times as a kid when I had some issues. So I think I got her kind of natural, holistic-y, alternative way of viewing the body from my mom. Oh, and then also, we were vaccinated very early on, but once we hit elementary school, my mom didn't vaccinate us anymore because she looked into things and saw some stuff and just thought about it and didn't like the idea of it and didn't agree with it. So, you know, my mom was like a little bit out there, hippy dippy, crunchy granola kind of vibes. And she still is to this day. Rachel's over here laughing.
She loves a good horoscope.
Yeah, she does. She'll, all the time too, my mom she'll email me and she'll be like, we're both Cancers. And she'll email me and she's like, I know you don't really believe in this stuff, but here you go. And she'll send me my horoscope, or we'll talk on the phone and she'll tell me what our horoscope is, and she'll always preface it with, I know you don't really believe in this stuff, but hear me out. So my mom is just very open-minded and very much views the world and life as whatever you want to make it. One thing that she would do, we would be getting ready, we would go to leave for school, and she would say, make a great day. And I'd be leaving and just be like, okay, make a great day. Yeah. Everybody else says, have a great day. Why can't you be normal? And I get it now. It's these little things that I think she inadvertently didn't realize that she was planting these seeds when she was, and did them not purposefully, but even that, make a great day. It's so true because now as an adult, sure, bad things happen to you, but it's how you react to them that matters. And if you let little bad things that happen to you throughout the day turn into consuming you, and bad moments all of a sudden turn into a bad day, a bad week, well, that's on you. You made it that way. It's little lessons like those that I know she wasn't thinking that deep about it as she was saying them, but it's those little pearls of wisdom that she would have that I think that she's really shaped me a lot as an adult, more than I even recognize, and I recognize that she shaped me a lot. My mom was always super, super supportive of us, just very positive and very, very much believed in us, and very much tried to instill in us that we ought to believe in ourselves. And so I think, well, my mom, she instilled that. My dad was very reasonable and level-headed, and he would always preach to us to be able to take care of ourselves. I always remember him telling us to, no matter what we did with our lives, to make sure that we made enough money to be able to support ourselves so we never had to depend on somebody else. Neither one of them went to college, and neither one of their careers were something that they loved, that they were passionate about, that they really wanted to do. You know, it wasn't my dad's dream to be a truck driver. My mom was a clerk at City Hall. It wasn't her dream to be the City Hall deputy clerk. They really wanted their girls to do something that they loved and to also make a good living doing it. And I believe that they've raised us all to be very independent, self-sufficient, driven, motivated, and dedicated girls. And, you know, my older sister, she's a master's in psychology. She owns her own counseling group up in Minnesota and Wisconsin. They have like 3 or 5 locations. She has 30 or 40 therapists that work under her. I mean, she's a killer. Does very, very well. Worked very hard to get it. And then you have me. I'm a chiropractor. I also own my own business. It's also quite successful. I love what I do and I make a good living doing it. And then my little sister, she's in education. That kid seems to be able to get any job that she interviews for. Currently, she's the head of a Montessori, I almost said Montessori, head of a Montessori up in Minnesota, but she actually put in her, what's it called when you
Notice.
She put in her notice because she has 3 young kids now and she wants to be a stay-at-home mom for a while. But she's also been an assistant principal, a literacy coach, a teacher. Yeah, so we all do something that we love and we're all very successful and self-sufficient doing it. Somehow the two of them, even though I feel like they're such polar opposites, but they're 2 opposing personalities and viewpoints somehow perfectly mingled together with each other, I feel like, to give like that perfect balance of believing in yourself but being realistic. And you can have anything you want, but you got to work hard for it. I don't know how the heck they did it. It was on accident for sure, and they'll tell you that too, but they did a pretty darn good job. I think I'm more like my dad. I'm more impatient than patient. Especially when my dad is the most impatient is when he's doing a project like working on a car or building something or working on something and it's not going smoothly. He'll just like pop his top. And I tend to be short-tempered with that stuff as well. Not to the degree that he is, but, you know, and from my dad too, I think I'm also, this sounds really kind of douchey to say about yourself, but I think I'm fairly charming and charismatic as well. I tell good stories. I know that I learned that from my dad. I look like my mom. There's a picture of her at high school prom and a picture of me at high school prom, and we look so much alike it's not even funny. And even now, you've seen in the pictures that I look so much like my mom. Got my dad's height though. And you know, from my mom I got a lot of my health stuff. Like I said, I'm very confident that I'm a chiropractor mainly because of my mom, because she did expose us to different ways of viewing the body different ways of viewing your health, different ways of looking at the world and at the universe. She opened us up to greater possibilities, has given me an appreciation for thinking outside of the box, asking better questions, bucking the status quo at times. So I got that from her. You know, and parenting wise, what I hope to carry over from each of them is my mom was very, very soft. I think she was naive and oblivious in many ways, potentially maybe in denial sometimes, you know, especially when it came to me and the issues that I had in high school with drugs and drinking. So she was a little soft, and I wish that she would have been a little more firm, more demanding of me, and I wish she would have disciplined me more. But, you know, it is what it is. And it shaped me. I mean, everything turned out fine, thankfully. Whereas my dad is, you know, when he found out that stuff, like, he laid down a heavy hand, metaphorically, not literally. So I try to be a good balance of the two of them. I have much firmer boundaries than my mom had. I very much have much firmer boundaries. You know, so I get that from my dad. I hope from my mom, I hope the thing that I instill in the kids is to believe in yourself, to set your sights high. And I also hope that I know that we're teaching them to not always just trust the information that's fed to you, and to look beyond that and to ask better questions, to think for yourself and make decisions based on not only information, but like how you feel, your gut feeling, like to trust your gut and your intuition. My mom does that, and I could do more of that, and I hope that we're teaching the kids to do that. So that's my parents. I think maybe the next video I'll do will be about my sisters. Catch you in the next one.